a story of the TAZ, the ZAHAV, on the Shulchan Aruch. The TAZ is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, and the TAZ was often an innovator on his novel rulings in Halacha. Often, he had a global impact on customs that today we take for granted. For example, in Europe, during the TAZ lifetime, kosher wine was often hard to come by and often very expensive. This led to the question of whether one could use shechad, which is beer or whiskey, or yain seraf, brandy, in lieu of wine for Kiddush. The Shulchan Aruch itself discusses this question, but there were several differing opinions that are quoted. The question is even more appropriate to the Kiddushat Abba, which is the Kiddush we do on Shabbat morning, Saturday morning. The Kiddush recited Shabbat morning, which is an enactment of the rabbis rather than of Torah origin. It's the Rabbanan, while the Friday Kiddush is Deoraita. Based on the realities of hardship and poverty, the TAZ ruled that in a place where there is found to be wine, surely one must recite Kiddush over wine even during the day. However, if the wine is expensive, as it is in our countries, we do not act stringently and use wine, since it is not a complete obligation as it is during the Kiddush at night. This is why even the greatest of the sages amongst us did not have the custom to recite the blessing over wine during the day. However, whoever does pronounce the blessing of Kiddush over wine during the day surely is acting in a proper and meritorious fashion. The source of this is Or Haim Hilchot Shabbat, Siman 272, in the Taz number 6. So here's the story. I heard from Rav Nalivitz, who heard this from someone who read it in Proznia's town ledger. Okay. When the TAZ was the rabbi of Prozina, he was extremely poor. His poverty was so great that he could not afford to heat his meager home in the cold winter nights. He would study Torah all night long, and the bitter cold would seep into his bones. Not far away was a tavern, and sometimes he would visit to have a drink to strengthen himself and warm his frozen spirit, allowing him to continue learning and studying Torah. Since he was too poor, due to his meager salary, to pay up front, the barman gave him credit by writing that the TAZ owed him on the wall of the bar. So I guess back in the day, whenever someone had a balance, they would write it on the wall, and everyone would see, and it would be open. It wouldn't be something in a book under the table. That way, it was all visible. This is a side note. Something funny that happened in the shul once. I remember there was a shul in the community that had a bunch of people coming throughout the summer and donating a lot of money. And they would only come for the summertime, and the rest of the year they wouldn't show up. So this, kind of built itself up. People would come, they would drop $5,000, $10,000 donations, $100,000 donations throughout the summer, and then like Hanoch, they went missing for the rest of the year. So one of the individuals, the president of the shul, got tired of this. He wanted everyone to pay up front, but you send people invoices, you send them texts, emails. Sometimes they pay, sometimes they don't. He did what this tavern owner did best. He made a big board. He put on the board outstanding donations over 60 days, something to that nature. And he listed everyone's full name with the amount of money that they owed and put it right in the front of the door of the shul, and huge. From what I heard, everything on that list was paid for within just a few days. Yeah, because when people are aware that others know that they owe money to the shul, they'll pay it up front. That's what he did. Would I do that if I had my own shul? Maybe. But especially if there were donations that were 5 to 10 years old. I know I sat on a couple of boards where people donated tons of money and then they just disappeared, or the shuls would just write them off, And so that was what they. So this guy in the tavern over there, he would write down the TAZ's name on the wall, how much he owed. Many locals also frequented the tavern, and when one day one of them noticed the rabbi's name on the wall, he asked the barman what it meant. When he heard that the rabbi bought spirits on credit, the man was astonished to think that the rabbi even drank at all. One friend has another, and pretty soon all the local tongues began wagging with exaggerated tales of the rabbi's drinking and his debts. This was Motzi Shem Ra, because there wasn't that much truth to it. He was voted out of office from being the rabbi, and the town had him removed with great dishonor on the wagon used for refuse. In short, they fired the rabbi, and when they sent him out, they didn't send him on a white, gorgeous horse. They put him on the garbage truck, and they told the Taz, all right, get the hell out of here. Goes to show you what these rabbis went through. What they went through. They put him on the wagon for the garbage, for the refuse, whatever. Afterwards, when the Taz became the rabbi of Ostra, and he began to print his magnum opus, the commentary on the ZAHAV on Shulchan Aruch, what happened was the price of wine rose, since there was a shortage of grapes in those environs. The Taz innovated that whiskey and brandy should also be considered fit for Kiddush. However, he wrote a condition that in Prozina, this was not the case, since they all hate brandy and whiskey. Now, why would he write that they hated it? Because the Taz wrote in his utter sincerity, since he truly believed that he was removed from office for drinking something the townspeople considered unbecoming for the rabbi, and that spirits must be considered poor and tasteless in those parts. So the rabbi was so humble, he assumed they fired him because he was drinking drinks that they didn't like, so that they only wanted wines. When the townspeople of Prosina heard about the Taz ruling, they immediately called together an assembly and urgently met to discuss the issue, since it greatly hurt them financially, being that everyone was allowed to drink any type of alcoholic beverage for Kiddush, while that city had to go out of their way and get the wine, which was rising in price due to supply and demand. They decided to send a prestigious delegation to Ostra to meet with and ask for the Taz's forgiveness. So before they even asked him the Halacha, they went to ask for forgiveness because they knew they did something wrong. The Taz's home was located above the Beit Midrash, and when heavy footfalls were heard on the stairs leading up, all the Taz's household assumed it was the householders of Proznia, since they wore heavy boots. When the delegation came before him, they all asked his forgiveness in the name of the entire town, as was the law and custom. The Taz asked them to be seated and had the Rebbitzin honor his guests with some cakes. When he noticed that they had not touched the food, he asked them why. They said the Prozina delegation searched for a proper way to broach the issue of the spirits, and here was the opportunity. How can the Rav set cakes before us without something to drink? Everyone knows that the primary form of refreshments is the drink, and the cake is an added delicacy to flavor the spirits. They then explained that this was their principal reason for visiting the Taz. The Honorable Rav wrote that one can recite Kiddush over spirits except in our locale, since we hate them. And this is not true. Rather, we like them very much. However, it was not our desire that our Rav would be a drinker, an alcoholic, or at least known as that. They asked him to change his ruling. The Taz had it erased from his work, the ZAHAV. That's brought down in Kitvei, Rav Yoshe, number 12, page 135. So, interesting story that came out with the Taz, how he was a rabbi of a city. They saw that he drank alcohol. They didn't like it. They fired him. He ended up, writing that town didn't like it, and then later on, they undid it. So, interesting background on the ZAHAV. I actually found a drawing of the ZAHAV, the TAZ. I don't know how accurate this is, but you can take it for what it is. Here you go. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen v'amen.